Right, we are back. Mr. Mick Symes, Mr. Lewis knows everything that's going on in this town and make sure that he spreads the information, which is just great. In fact, we have little chats from time to time, and we are both concerned that the Harvard review into local media is very accurate and that the shrinkage of media, we no longer have a paper resident in Lewis. We no longer have a radio station here. We don't have, we've now got television, but mostly we rely upon Mick Symes and his social media columns and pages to reflect local media. And that what the Harvard Review found was that the less local media you have, is the worse public services become and the higher council taxes become. And I think that has been accurately reflected in this town.
Very, very much so. One of the great difficulties of social media is that people like myself, we are not trained journalists. We invariably get involved in it because we simply wanted to have a little chat group and things can grow. In the case of Lewis Present, it came out of the fact we had a magnificent, and still have, a magnificent group called Lewis Past, which is entirely local history. And it's most important, it's the history of you, it's the history of your family, it's the history of your connections with the area. And many people within the group went to school with each other, they knew each other's parents and grandparents and things of that nature. So we learn more about our town and our area and our previous lifestyles all the time, and it runs beautifully. It doesn't as such need any admin at all. It really runs beautifully, and that's a quality comment on all of you that are members of that group and contribute. However, many of you are also members of Lewis Present, which we set up to separate what's going on today from what happened yesteryear. And it can get extremely busy, it can get extremely lively, it brings up a vast range of opinions, and the slightest thing going on at a national level can send a big ripple through locally. But of course, it's not a replacement for a quality newspaper. And here in Lewis, we had two originally. We had the Sussex Advertiser under dear old George Bacon, that was not very far along the road from here, headquartered just literally 100 yards away. And for many years, the Sussex Express. These have gone now, and unfortunately, they print the news from all across the county. They syndicate their news. They have no offices. Everyone works from home. The long-standing journalists that we've known and admired for many, many years are retiring. And there is no online replacement. I have to be brutal and say that the online offerings are more interested in selling advertising than they are in providing accurate local news. And the journalists coming along today are no longer investigative. They do not look into the background. Countering that, we have social media, and we have somebody who posts under the name of Chris Lewis. And you will see that he blogs, he has his own website, and he repeats stuff into Lewis Present. And these are very detailed, high quality journalistic investigations or comments about current affairs or issues within the area. But generally speaking, quality of that nature is not what social media is about. We're lucky to have it. We're lucky to have people like Chris who will, and I've got to be honest, I don't necessarily agree with him half the time, but he puts forward very, very good arguments and very interesting insights into local matters. These would, once upon a time, have surfaced in the newspapers. They would have been referred to in letters to the editor. But now we rely on social media, but it is something that is generally run by people who are just interested in doing it, but I am certainly not a qualified journalist. So what I say tends to come from the heart rather than coming from the brain.
Well, they're coming from the Hart this morning,
Yeah.
from the White Hart, which is right in the centre of Lewes. This is a new concept, Mick, based really on old things. Good morning.
Good morning. You're working.
Are you coming to join us?
Oh, well, I'm just looking around.
Okay, I mean, you're very welcome. This is local television, and any comment that you care to make is very welcome indeed.
Okay.
So here we are, and here you are. If you want to combine the two, we're very happy.
What are you actually doing?
Well, we're broadcasting. Where are you from? Come and.
Well, I'm from Norway. Well,
Oh, right. Now, come and lean over our shoulder, if you would, because you had some ladies from Norway here, and they were going to go down to Rodmore, to the little village where Virginia Woolf committed suicide the other day.
Okay.
Are you part of that group?
No, I'm not part of that group. I've been to Glenborn for the opera festival.
Ah, right.
We're heading back to Oslo today, so I'm going to catch a train at I think 10:30.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I have with me Mr. Lewis. So if you want to know anything about Lewis, this is the man to chat to.
Yeah.
I have to say that the first ever time I left England or Britain to go abroad, I went as a Boy Scout to Norway.
Okay, where in Norway?
A small town called Bru, which is south of Oslo.
Yeah, okay.
And
Brilliant.
in 1962, remember it well. I still have my scrapbook, and it was a joy to visit your country.
Very nice to hear. And keep up your good broadcasting.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's lovely to see you.
Bye.
Yeah, that's exactly the sort of thing that we want to happen. So, yes, I was saying to you, it's based on the old Pebble Mill at One, where he was one of my mentors, an executive producer called Phil Sidey at the BBC, who was in charge of Edgbaston, Pebble Mill Studios, which I understand they've pulled down now. I don't think it's there anymore. But it had this vast atrium. And he said, we've got all this space for people to come in and sign in the morning. What the hell are we going to do with it? And he said, I'll tell you what, we'll broadcast from it. And that's exactly what he did. And that's how Pebble Mill at One got going. But he said, people can still come, they can still go, and they walk through the set. So you've got stars chatting to the hosts and so on, and suddenly somebody would sort of come through and say, can you direct me to floor 3? And I loved the concept. I thought it was terrific. So this is what we hope will happen here, and is starting to happen here. And that's terrific. Right, okay. Sorry to intervene, but nonetheless, there's somebody who is from Norway.
I was just going to say, Keith, that was a lovely example of actually one of the most important industries of Lewes, and that is tourism. Tourism is a very, very important part of Sussex, and it's certainly a very important part of this town. It brings people here, it brings visitors, it brings money. And one of the things I try to do, not necessarily very successfully, is promote Lewes in a very positive manner, because it is a very positive town. It does have a great divergence of views, and probably very strong in a very small town. But of course, here we sit in a place where Thomas Paine once debated.
Absolutely. These rafters have seen the start of the United States.
They have indeed.
And you'll be pleased to know, I'm sorry if we keep on wandering from topic to topic, but there's nothing focused on in this show, is we have a lady who co-hosts once every 2 or 3 weeks, called Suzanne Mouchot, who is head of one of the architect schools in New York, and a delightful lady. And her relatives, her ancestors, were the architects that built Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris.
Good Lord.
So, she's got quite a pedigree, but she is just delightful. And it keeps us in touch with America and what's going on, and certainly them in touch with us. And then we've also got Melissa Conti, who has been around for a long time with Mirador, and she co-hosts once every couple of weeks. So we are staying as international as we can while not taking away from the local flavour.
Yeah.
Carry on.
Yes. So anyway, tourism. Yes, it is something that's a very important facet of the town to attract people in, to attract people to spend at the various businesses, to dine at the various restaurants. Certainly, Lewes is a place now where you can dine well. I go back to my youth when being able to afford to pop in the steakhouse at the bottom of the cliff was a red letter day. You saved up a bit of money and you went out to go around with the wife, and you went down there and had a really nice meal. Lewes always had its little cafes and eating spots, but now it is becoming a place that has got a wide range, soon to be increased with the opening of Zorba, of culinary delights.
Yes. Having said that, I would argue that it doesn't really have a first-class restaurant. We are renowned for our pub food and our pubs.
Mhm.
They're excellent. And that has given rise to a range of, as you say, decent restaurants. But I would say that's what they are. They're decent restaurants. We don't have a first-class restaurant, whereas in Brighton you could find a dozen.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of things that have tried and failed. Pierre Marco White, he tried, not in Lewes, but nearby. He did not succeed.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that Lewes has got a demand for an absolute top quality Michelin starred restaurant. But what we have got a demand for, clearly, because they're all surviving and surviving well, is good quality and variety. And certainly with the new Zorba restaurant opening, because I particularly like Turkish, Greek and Mediterranean food.
Right.
And I've been spoiled a little bit over the last 20 years by having friends who cook their native dishes incredibly well. And by
When's it opening, by the way?
in June. At the moment, it's simply in June. I'm hoping I'll be around when it opens. I've got a week's holiday booked. It's sort of an overthrow from 2 years of COVID, but I'm off to sort of rather sunnier climes for a week.
Well, good for you. Why not?
They've got good internet, so I won't be away from the screen. But yes, it should be opening up in June, and it's going to bring hopefully another dimension to Lewes, another option.
Yes, I mean, I do think that there is a good variety, and Lewes being Lewes, where it really is a town of Twittons and twisty turny roads. I mean, the only straight bit of road that I know is going when you reach the prison. There is a fair run down to the bypass. That's the only straight bit that I know.
Yeah.
The rest is just a rabbit warren of streets, and you can turn a corner and suddenly there's something that you really should have a go at. I quite agree. We are a town of variety. There's the wonderful Jane. She keeps popping in and out. That's what I'm greeted with every morning, Mick, when I come in here. Jane, beaming and really pleasant and lovely. She makes sure that the coffee is done. She gets my extension lead out and plugs it in for me. She's a delight, an absolute delight. I mean, this is in many ways because it's had its ups and downs, obviously, as a hotel, because hotel trade is having its ups and downs. But it actually is a hidden gem.
I love the White Hart. I've got to be honest about it, and that's partly because in my youth it was not a place that I could really come into. One of the strange things about Lewes is that the social status has completely mellowed over the years. The crowd that used to be over the road. That was very renowned as on a Monday. It would be the farmers in there, and farmers have done rather well in this area. I've never met a poor one, and I've never met one that wasn't hard working either. They certainly would do hours that would make most of us wilt. But the White Hart, definitely, you had to be at the right crowd to come in here. You didn't arrive in jeans and a t-shirt straight from doing the building work. Luckily for us, there are a lot of other good pubs where you could. But it's such a beautiful building with such lovely history.
Oh, here she is. There we go. Say good morning, Jane.
Good morning, Jane.
No, come and let's see your shining, beautiful face. Come along. No, just look over our shoulder just for a second or so. Yeah, there we go.
I have my eldest daughter held her wedding reception here. I've attended so many functions here over the years and enjoyed them all. But unfortunately, at the moment, we all know locally that there were issues. COVID was an absolute whammer on a place like this.
Yes.
A disaster.
Absolutely.
And one can only feel for the owners because they've been put in difficult circumstances, completely and utterly not of their causing. But yes, it's a wonderful building. It's historic. It's been the centre of the town. It overlooks the high street. It's probably, I was going to say, the most famous building next to the castle.
Oh, I would say yes.
The White Hart.
Yeah.
It was a private house. It was a coaching inn. It's just got so much history oozing out of it.
Absolutely. In fact, if you look to the left there is a fireplace and it's got TP on it.
Yeah.
Now, because of the background of the hotel, what would you actually think that TP stands for?
Pelham.
Right. You know it.
Yes.
Most people think it's Tom Paine.
No,
it's not.
No.
It's Thomas Pelham.
Yeah.
Well, come on. Now tell us who the Pelhams are.
I'm not too well versed on the entire Pelham family, though they're huge. And of course, they own Stanmer Park. There's a number of them buried there. And they had the Pelham Bow, which was awarded. Oh, goodness me. So I'm going to get it wrong, but it was awarded for bravery in battle in France by a medieval king. And the bow is the badge that they got.
Right.
Sorry, the Pelham buckle. The Pelham buckle.
That's right. Yeah, and it
Pelham
appears
buckle.
on the church doors and so on. Yeah,
It appears here, there, and everywhere. And one of the most quaint places it appeared were on what was often referred to quite incorrectly as the Bow Bells milestones. There was when the turnpikes were built and private money could be used to build solid roads that coaches could actually ride on and horses could come down and people could walk on, but you had to pay a small toll to cover the cost of the maintenance and to give a profit to the investors. These milestones were put all the way from London to Eastbourne, and as they bound the Pelham property out at Lawton area, they had the Pelham buckle on the top. Now, unfortunately, the milestones, which were cast iron, most of them have gone. Where they went, whether they were simply stolen and thrown on a bit of scrap iron to add some weight, whether they sit in American or British country gardens with the owners completely unaware of what they've got.
Yeah.
These lovely historic milestones have long since disappeared. They also run from Uckfield up to Lewes. And they were there. We can still find them on the map. We know exactly where they would stand. There are still a few with the Pelham buckle out at Golden Cross.
Right.
I believe they're still there. But yes.
Yes. Because the other you said that they got it from fighting in France, presumably in the 100 Years' War. But in St. Michael's Church, there is a frieze on the wall to Sir Nicholas Pelham, who, being the local squire, had his own private army. They all did. And when the French invaded Seaford, as it's on there, because there's a little rhyme on the frieze itself, is Nick took his little force and went down and saw them off.
Yeah.
So sent them back to France. as indeed he should.
Yes.
So yes, the Pelhams are equally famous around here and remembered in some ways better than most, because there is Pelham House behind here, which is a nice stately home. And in fact, the Pelhams lived there, or the family of the Pelhams lived there for 200 years uninterrupted, as I understand, until it became council chambers. And then the other thing is, of course, this is a Pelham Arms pub,
Of course,
which you would know better than you would know Pelham House.
A lovely pub, and somewhere that serves an incredibly nice meal as well.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I do praise our pub, the standard of our pubs. We don't have a bad pub here. No.
Not at all. They obviously we haven't got as many as we used to have 20 years ago, a decade ago or more. But the pubs we have in Lewes are absolutely superb places. They serve the community well, and of course many of them serve our lovely local brew, Harvey's.
Of course. But one must never forget Harvey's. In fact, a whole program on Harvey's. If you see my eyes wandering, it's because I can see the front door of the hotel, and I can see people coming in and out, and it is very, very active. And often it is on a Monday, because people have spent the weekend here, and they're either taking off or sort of coming in from their last look around. Now, Mick, what we do on Mirador each day is we take a look at the front pages. And I would like you, if you don't mind, and if you've got the time to stay with me, is to make a couple of comments on the front pages. And the first one is the Metro, where it says Brits feel the pinch. And basically what it's saying is the cost of living is meaning an awful lot of people can't afford some of the things that they've been used to. Well, are Brits feeling the pinch? What are we feeling in Lewes?
Definitely are. What I've got to say here is that immediately under the headline, it says rising shoplifting to survive.
Yeah.
Now, this is absolutely, I was going to say criminal, but that's the wrong term. We've got food poverty. Lewes, which is a very affluent town in an affluent area, 4 food banks. We have 3 in Lewes, 1 in Rimmer. And these food banks, their need has been increasing in the last few years. It shouldn't be. And now we have this problem of energy prices, food prices and everything else. And yes, Brits are feeling the pinch. And yes, very much it affects everyone. And it doesn't matter how wealthy you are going to be paying more, but you're not going to be earning more. Your income is highly unlikely to be going up. And it's frightening that people are being pushed towards crime. And I'm sure that these people they're referring to, people who shoplift to survive, are people that would not normally, willingly or deliberately break the law.
But they're being pushed into
They
it.
are being pushed into circumstances where they've got to pay for their energy costs. Food is going up in price. We're expecting anything connected with wheat to be taking a huge increase in the next 6 months or so.
Yeah, actually, just as a little aside, the wheat fields of Ukraine. I spent some time in Ukraine and eastern Ukraine, and in Lugansk, where a lot of the action is taking place at the moment. And of course, the earth is particularly rich. And in fact, Hitler had the topsoil taken back to Germany at one stage. But what they do now is they produce fruit. And the fruit is most delicious fruit that you've ever tasted. I mean, I really mean that. But do you know, nobody has bothered to develop any sort of container business there. So it rots off the trees, and that's such a sad state of affairs. You know, the World Economic Forum is about to meet, and they're all going to stroke their beards and say this is what should be. But nobody ever seems to look at these sort of things, and yet it's playing on your face. I go there. I spend within 10 days. I've got sussed out what's happening, and it's that sort of thing that makes me a bit annoyed, and why I sometimes get what I say is foreign aid. No, let's spend the money, but let's get a whole different team in charge. Let's get a whole different group of people who understand what foreign aid is required for and what it's needed for, instead of the present group that we've got. End of rant. Right. The Times. Fuel poverty predicted to hit 40% of households. Right. Comment on that?
My youngest daughter has a lovely little flat in London with her partner. She's been paying £40 a month direct debit for the electric. It's a 1-bedroom flat. It's a small flat, and they're only there of evenings. Her direct debit is now £140. So it's gone up £100. And obviously they're monitoring the meter and everything else to find out how right it is. So many people pay by direct debit, and the energy companies increase the take. They don't tell you to do it, they do it.
Yeah.
So we can have situations where people are going to suddenly find that they've had more money taken than they budgeted for. And this sort of inefficiency, or the way the system works, is definitely going to cause problems. It's going to cause problems. Not only the cost of the fuel that they're using, you can only make so much saving. You can't go around taking all your light bulbs out, stop them being used, and that's assuming you've already gone to the...
Well, there's so many hidden things, aren't there? The heating and so on and so forth,
I mean, I must admit, I'm one of those that I turn off every single switch in the flat except for the fridge. The fridge is the only thing that's running. Everything else is turned off. How much more can I save? And the answer is pretty near nil. And for many people, it's not that easy to save significantly. So yes, fuel prediction, poverty predicted for 40% of households. Let's have a hot summer, thank goodness, and hope we don't have a bad winter. Because it will be an oncoming problem.
Yes, it most certainly will. Incidentally, not to be raised here, but one of my favourite bugaboos to have a go at is the use of direct debits, which I think they help the bank, they help the supplier, but they most certainly don't help the consumer. I've got a real thing about direct debits, but we'll leave it for another day because I want to get your view on the energy boss. Says prices are too high. And the thing is, I would have thought that an energy boss, if he thinks the prices are too high, could take steps to lower them. But no, what does he do? He calls on the government and says, you do something about it. It's not our problem, Gov.
It's a hugely complicated thing we got out there, because obviously we had this huge push to go to renewables, which at the time, looking back 10, 20 years ago, it looked to me like the EU were just saying we'll fine everyone if they're not using 20, 25% renewables. And we were doing it to avoid being fined, not doing it because it's great for the environment. And indeed, not every bit of renewable energy is necessarily, on the face of it, good for the environment. We have plans in locally for a massive great solar panel farm on lovely green pasture out at Ringmer. And I'm not over keen on the idea of PV panels, not on the ground anyway. But it's how we have all the taxes that are involved, all the subsidies that are involved. It's not a very clear thing to the likes of you and I. We just pay the price. So if energy bosses are saying the price is too high, they know far more about it than us, and I hope it gets expounded. But it is a minefield. We simply know what we're paying. And unfortunately, the one thing I think is criminal is the fact that those that are on the lowest income quite often will be on card meters and key meters. They pay in advance. Their little meters are knocking 50p a day off their credit because they pay for the meter rental and things like that. So with prices being, whether they're too high or too low, it is always those at the bottom end of the economy that actually pay the highest price.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
They're paying more for their 1 kilowatt of electric than somebody who's paying a £3,000 a month bill.
On Friday, I picked up a couple of statistics on inflation, and it officially is hit at 9% at the moment. But this commentator was saying that to those in the poorer brackets, it's actually probably closer to 11%. Those with lots of money is only hitting 7.5%. So the wealthier you are, the easier you're finding it with these things, and it's sad that should be the case.
If you're involved in the building industry, you'd be absolutely jumping for joy if inflation was only 11%, because in the building industry it has gone ballistic. Timber, cement products, plaster products, copper products, absolutely everything has gone through the roof.
Well, I mean, you're an expert in that, but I mean that all works its way down to what you pay out of your monthly budget, doesn't it?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Right. The Daily Express, which tends to be a supporter of the government, is a time for a rescue plan, Rishi. Energy bills to hit £3,000. I mean, now you just talked about your daughter. At £40 a month, well, that's 500 quid, and it's likely to go and hit 3,000. Now, I mean, that's not acceptable in any civilized society. That's a profiteering society, surely.
It's simply, I think, the huge increase that's coming over such a short period of time. I think that's where everyone's getting caught out, and
it's being propelled.
It is. I'm not sure what is the answer. I mean, obviously, one of the things that's being shouted about is do a windfall tax on the energy companies on their profit. Well, fair enough, they invest, and they don't always get a return out of their investment. They would get a tax write-off out of it. Lots and lots of people's pensions are tied into the old gilts, as they would probably be known, but the solid energy companies of these days. But I don't know. It's just difficult. I rely on people with vast greater knowledge of economics than I to come up with some form of answer. All I know is that people like me, we just have to pay or go without.
Yeah, isn't that the truth?
And we're going to be going without an awful lot more, even though we're going to be paying an awful lot more.
Now, the I, and I don't always agree with what the I says, but cost of living help is on hold as the Prime Minister focuses on Partygate. But I think it's slightly unfair to Boris, in as much as I understand it, is he didn't actually over the weekend decide, I'll focus on Partygate. Is he was forced into it by the report from this Lady Grey. Any thoughts on? I mean, I'll tell you what my thought is on that whole thing is. All right, principles were broken. People broke the law. Yes, they should be hammered in some ways, and the fact that it was the Prime Minister is smack his fingers very hard. But let's be done with it and put it aside instead of keeping and using it. When we've got all these things, including we're at war to all intents and purposes, and we're worrying about whether he had a slice of ice cake at Christmas.
I absolutely agree. I really do. I personally do not give a toss if he sat in the garden and had a glass of vino. I really don't. He and his colleagues are our government. They run our country. They are how we're seen around the world. And I'm not swayed by those who say we're seen as a load of idiots because we've got a Prime Minister that breaks the law. Goodness me. Prime Ministers and Presidents all around the world have their quirks and they don't go on about it.
No.
We need to concentrate on really what does matter.
Yes.
And I think this government have had an awful lot of things thrown at them that were completely unexpected. Starting from the fact they had to deal with Brexit, which had already been a really good agreement or a better agreement, had been rejected by the previous administration. and they've come in and got to get on and deal with it. Well, they did. And then we get COVID. Nobody could foresee COVID. And nobody could foresee the Ukrainian war.
Yeah.
There's an awful lot of problems we got out there. And right now we need to be concentrating on energy prices, on food shortages, on standards of living that are going to drop, that vast amounts more population of this country are going to go into poverty, while people are still bitching about a blasted bottle of wine.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
He lied.
You encapsulated my own
He
thinking.
broke the law. He's a bit hypocritical. Fine. We can't undo that. Move on. Next election, if you don't like it, vote him out.
Vote him out. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. The Daily Mail. PM allies accuse Sue Gray of playing politics because this report came out this weekend, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, Sue Gray, obviously, senior civil servant, a Mandarin, is described as a Mandarin by many. There's always going to be politics involved, isn't there?
Yeah.
Is she a Sir Humphrey? Is she one of those that will turn around and say, well, governments come and go, but the civil service remains? I haven't had a chance to read the report. I'm going to enjoy reading it. I'm sure it's going to be full of things that will be knocked by other parties. I think we just have to see. We just got to let this one roll now.
I think so.
We've been building up to it. We're getting to the crescendo. The report's got to be published and analysed, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah, and actually, to some extent, in my opinion, is not give it priority because we, as you say, war, pestilence, a divorce from a group of countries, if you like, is we've got enough on our plate. The Guardian. Children mental health in crisis as cases rocket to a record high.
The Guardian, my word. I find The Guardian such an enigma. On an awful lot of its articles, it is so biased in one way. Yeah. That's your point of view. Okay, put it out there. It's a good read, but it's a point of view. It's not fact. In this particular children's mental health crisis, it is a huge national scandal. Not a problem, it's a scandal. There were huge cutbacks in childcare and in state-funded childcare over the last decade, if not longer. And we do indeed have a problem with our future generations. There's not enough money going into it. There is the expertise around. But it's one of those problems we have to look at seriously now, and it needs sorting.
Yeah, I mean, to be quite honest with you, I've had a little bit to do with mental health, and I actually wonder where about 18 months ago, I researched the money. Do you know we spend something like 15 billion on mental health? One way or another, and yet, if you actually go into any of these facilities and take a look, is there Dickensian as they were 150 years ago? I mean, it's shocking, and I think that it's a lot of flim flam. Make the future king head of the charity that is a mental health charity, and then we can all go home and have a nice cup of tea. You know?
The biggest problem with mental health in this country is accessing treatment. It's accessing treatment when it's needed.
Explain that a little bit.
I have a number of people who have ongoing mental health issues, and it can be incredibly difficult for them to access support.
Right. I can believe that.
Even those that have got ongoing conditions.
Yeah.
I can't say too much because obviously it's private matters, but accessing the system and getting that continual support. The amount of times we read in the local paper of unfortunate deaths, and we find that they weren't getting the backup. They were unable to have the continual support. They were left on their own. They were discharged from hospital, believed to be okay.
I couldn't agree more.
It's a scandal in a country like ours that we've allowed such important facets of healthcare to fall away.
Yes, I'm fascinated that your thinking is along those lines too. The Daily Telegraph, gene-edited crops to help the crops in the Ukraine, I think is what it says. Here we've had this row about monster.
Yeah. Monsanto, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh dear.
And now it looks as if we're going to have to use them anyway, whether we want to or not.
I must admit, it's a really, really emotive one. Genetic engineered crops. Obviously, anybody who's been breeding plants and vegetation of any type, crossbreeding and developing your disease-resistant strains naturally has gone on for centuries, absolute centuries. They still haven't managed to get the black rose, have they?
No. But they did get the black tulip, did they not?
Yes. But quite what this is about, I'm really not sure. I mean, the Ukraine provide, I think it's 30% of the world's wheat, and nearly all of that, of course, comes out of Odessa, the port that is now completely mined by the Ukrainians to stop the Russians getting in. And the Russians have got it under blockade to ensure that nothing gets out.
Yeah.
So we have got this immediate food crisis. I'm not sure that I'd be sitting very comfortable if it suddenly became an open door to genetically modified crops going here, there, and everywhere. I'm still not quite convinced by some of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do think the term monster crops is a misnomer, but by the same token, as you say, is you can't have these things tampered with unless there is some sort of monitor system in place. Yeah,
checks and balances, absolutely.
The Sun. Interesting thing about the Sun newspaper, Mick, is it has almost exclusively stayed away from anything to do with politics and Boris. It has covered everything from celebrities, court cases, to the royals who've got a hiccup, and it's bent over backwards to stay away, and it is doing so now. And I suppose, really, in some ways, it's not a bad thing because it's come up with some deficiencies in the NHS, where a nurse is being investigated for killing a child. But the Sun really it's dive for cover.
Yeah, in this particular lead story, it's something of a nature of a story that will occur every so often. With one rogue person operates in the hospital, and deaths or severe illness or extended recovery times are the result. I think one of the strange ones we came across was Munchausen syndrome by proxy. None of us would ever have heard about it, except it turned out the nurse was killing off patients, and she was diagnosed with that. And let's look at the fact that the greater majority, 99.9% recurring, of our NH staff are wonderful people.
Yes, they are.
They are dedicated. They go far beyond the call of duty. And
yes, I split because I always qualify anything I say about the NHS, which I see as a monolithic bureaucratic monstrosity, with the fact that the people who work for it, the doctors, the nurses, the support staff, I have yet to find one that hasn't given me full great service and looked after me. Yeah.
We should not allow one rogue nurse in one situation to blight what is something we all must remain proud of and support.
Now, the final paper is my really favourite Daily Star, They stole the leader writers from the Sun, and some of their stuff is, long to array over us. And the story is that the Jubilee weekend is going to be hot and sunny. and there's a slight implication that between God and the Queen, that they've managed to design a hot weekend for all your activities.
Well, they say the sun shines on the righteous. If the sun shines on Lewis, I shall be incredibly happy, and we breathe a sigh of relief, because we want Lewis people to come out, come down to Malin, enjoy themselves, have a wonderful day, have a wonderful evening. And it's all in one of the finest causes going. It's in the cause of celebrating the 70 years of our monarch and her reign, and putting a bit of money into the local charities. Right.
Well, now I'm going to play the thing that I played at the beginning of our thing, Okay. I realised that. I'm enjoying this, Mick. This is great stuff. Yeah, that's fine. Well, there you are. Mick just rushed out to feed the meter again. He is back because he is tending to our coffee to make sure that we get a little fillip here before we carry on. It is now 10:28. It is the 23rd day of May in the year 2022. Not the most auspicious of years. We started off with a lockdown. We battled through with some hope to brighter days when we could actually put COVID behind us. And actually, in some ways, we have put COVID behind us. It hasn't gone away, but as so often happens, when other things take priority, we tend to forget about it. And we lose our sense of how vital it is to continue to fight it. And partly it is because we are at war, whether we like it or not, and that war is not going to go away quickly. So we are in a very bad state for the year of 2022. But in some ways, listening to Mick Symes who, as I describe, is really Mr. Lewis, and who knows what goes on beneath the surface here, what makes us tick, that it is good to hear that, in his opinion, we are a thriving community, full of vim and vigour and on the go. Mr. Lewis?
Absolutely well summed up. Although saying that, it's a bit overcast today. The high street is almost empty. Plenty of parking. Probably down to the fact it's nearly £4 an hour to be there.
Yeah, yes, I know. That's outrageous in itself.
Yeah, it is.
Right, I'm sorry, I'm leaning over you to get some coffee.
Very recently, I discovered I could park my vehicle at Seaford Railway Station for £4 a day, which is very, very good, and get the train. And I went off to London actually, and took a showing up there with my girls, my daughters. It's a bit of
Which show did you go to?
We actually went to see Only Fools and Horses. Which I was a bit dubious as to whether you could turn that into a musical. But the answer is yes, you can.
You can.
It's been running for 2 years, 3 years now, I believe, going absolutely strong, sellout audiences. It's hilarious and jolly good fun. But yes, £4 all day to park at Seaford Railway Station, and £3.90 an hour to park outside the right.
I know. It's ridiculous, isn't it? But mind you, let's get on to something else that's a bit contentious. Now, we don't have a council anymore in Lewis.
No, we haven't. And yesterday, I must admit, I was having one of the many chats that I do with people locally, and it was being pointed out that so many really good employees of the council, long-serving members of the district council, administrators and workers there, have now retired or taken early retirement and gone. And these were the people that knew their job, knew their area, and knew the residents. And we are literally now being run by an administration from Eastbourne.
Mm-hmm.
And they
almost totally now.
Almost totally.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there is a token presence in New Haven, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to know, because it certainly isn't coming out, what was the benefit of Lewis District Council going in with Eastbourne Council? It's done away with Lewis District Council. We might as well take the LBC out of the title.
Absolutely. I mean, they're almost an irrelevance, aren't they? Yeah. I mean, to me, it's absolutely crazy. But let me ask you this. I suppose one benefit, if you can call it a benefit, is that the town council will take a bigger lead in not the things that constitutionally it can't do, but by the same token, there are things that it can do. And it seems to me that under our last mayor, Stephen Catlin, that it started to get a move on. What's your view? Because you deal with councils.
I've always been impressed by Lewis Town Council. I've been impressed by the quality of the councillors that are elected to it. Their service to the town is exemplary. Their finger is on the pulse incredibly. And yeah, Stephen, of course, because of COVID, was rolled over for 2 years and has done a magnificent job as a mayor. And our town council is a very, very important part of the legislation and authority around here. I'm not sure that it controls a significant amount, but it certainly is instrumental in getting a significant amount done.
Yes, I mean, sometimes the district council hold the purse strings.
Yes,
but it's been particularly lacking in leadership, in my view. I can't really put one finger on any outstanding councillor in the last 8 years that I would say was a fantastic leader. Am I missing something?
I think we have to be fair and bring in a slightly different point. We had a whole load of new councillors come along. And being a councillor is not something you literally you do step into it at the declaration, but it takes time to understand what is really going on. And we've been lucky in having some very wise old birds around Lewes, but we have this entire new generation of younger councillors who come in. Many of them are activists, or they support particularly important local good causes or environmental causes, things like that. But they've got to learn the trade of being a councillor, of how things work and how to get things done. It's not as straightforward as an ordinary committee meeting. Shall we do this and let's have a vote of hands? There's obviously a lot normally has to go on in the background.
Yeah, but I mean, that's in the hand of the political parties. Shouldn't they be paying more attention to the way that they actually feed people into being councillors, rather than just looking around for somebody with a name on a nomination paper?
Again, it's really difficult. If I go back to the early 70s, when the Liberal Party first started really making movements around this area, there was some very, very good grassroots liberal workers, councillors, and it built up and it built up and it built up, and we ended up with a damn good MP. Not my political persuasion, I will admit, but he was a damn good MP. He was a great constituency MP.
Absolutely.
And he was very...
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, and he was brilliant for getting his nose in where people didn't necessarily want it to go. Top marks, in all honesty. And yes, and now we got the Green Party who've come along full of wonderful ideals and everything else, but I think they've got to work their way more into being politicking, rather than
the practicalities.
The practicalities of politics, rather than where they are in the environmental benefits and everything else of the town. There's a huge difference between being an activist for a cause and then trying to translate that into the everyday mundane running of a council.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, it's a bit like the bloody icing cake in Westminster for lockdown stuff. It's fine in principle to get on your high horse, but how does it help the war in Ukraine? How does it help galloping inflation? How does it the cost of living? How does it? It doesn't. Is all it does is it gives some people a sense of I did my bit. He was a naughty boy, smack me. And I think that we just got to be a wee bit careful about. I mean, I argue that I lived in Vancouver, a city that you know a little bit, I think, don't you?
No.
Oh, I thought you did. Isn't that strange? No. In the back of my mind was that we'd had a conversation about Vancouver at one stage. But anyway, the Vancouver City Council was governed in all the time I was there, which was 17 and a half years, by a group called the Non-Partisan Association. And the councillors were made up of individuals ranging from sort of a fairly hard right social credit party down to a lovely lawyer called Harry Rankin, who was a communist. And it was the best governed city that I've ever lived in. It really was. It was very well governed indeed. And I really wonder whether we should have party politics in local government.
It's certainly nice when a wide variety of views are represented. I mean, if we quickly look at America, they have two-party politics over there. They never agree. It's always party first and practicality second. Every year we're sitting there and the news will be full of the fact they're not putting their budget through and the administration's got to stop working. They can't pay people. Whereas over here, I go back many years, and within the town council, one has to say that the greater majority of the memorable councillors that served this town incredibly well, but always put town first and party politics second.
Yeah. I actually went down Yarrow Road on Saturday night. Yeah. Is it Mayor Yarrow?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, in Emily Clark, the first Labour councillor to come back in the town, I must admit I didn't realise it was 40 years. 40 years since we've had Labour councillors in the town, and all of them in the past all created what we got here, and they were all town first, and they worked well. It wasn't about party politics, and I think now we got a nice wide range of councillors from different backgrounds. Let's keep it town first.
Yes, I agree with you.
Let's go with it, and let's go with it's best for the town. And if occasionally something is not quite what fits in well with that particular party, for the benefit of the town at the time, it should be supported.
Yes. Now,
it's the way forward.
The one thing that worries me a little bit about the system as it is at the moment is I asked, I'm not going to name him or her, a town councillor to come on a couple of weeks ago, and the response was, I'd love to, but I must check with the town clerk first. Now, the whole idea of a free society is that anybody can speak their mind, and particularly since we have people like you and I in media who are always thirsty for comment and willing to pass on thoughts and ideas to the great white public, is that a town clerk would hold that sort of power bothers the hell out of me.
I'm not sure what to say on that comment, to be fair. I haven't met the new town clerk. The old one, Steve, was a great guy. He really was. I think he served the town incredibly well. But we have a new one. And I really know little or nothing about the lady, to be fair. But the councillors should be able to speak their mind.
I agree with you.
And that's it. And they should be able to do so in public. It's down to them what they speak about. If they need to be circumspect in certain circumstances, then I'm sure that any town councillor in this town is able to do that. But I think they should bear in mind, it should always be borne in mind, they are elected to represent the people. And if that involves talking publicly, so be it, it should.
Let's just give our tonsils a rest for 2 seconds or so. And perhaps if I can just play this little thing, because it might just ring a bell. I think if I can find it. There. Well done, the energy companies. They're full of bright ideas to help their customers. Now they've made power so expensive that for an average house such as this, you can't afford to heat it. So you don't need appliances such as this. But that means you also don't need a fridge, because you can keep your groceries cool and fresh without it. The house is cold enough. Well done, chaps. It's my own comment about the energy crisis.
I like that, Keith, because one of the biggest problems we have in this country is that the greater majority of our housing stock and offices are incredibly energy inefficient. We have a situation whereby 2025, no more new gas boilers are going to allow to be fitted. The great push is on for heat pumps. Heat pumps are a very expensive piece of equipment that work best in highly insulated houses. They are incredibly inefficient in poorly insulated houses. So we've got to have a massive great think about what's going on and where the money's got to be spent and where it can be wisely spent, especially where we live in a town like this that has plenty of housing stock that's 200 or 300 year old.
That's right. Now, one of my favourite stories, which I did for Town and County when it was here in town, when it was going, and which I've touched on in my documentary, is that in 1850 or so, we had 65 pubs and 17 breweries. And partly it was because the water was poisonous. You couldn't drink the water, and so people would have to go to the pub. But the other thing is that the housing at the time was very drafty and chilly, so people actually went to the pub to stay warm.
Well, we also lived in a different manner. I mean, sitting here right next to us, we have the fireplace, and the fireplace burnt wood or coal when coal became available, but long before that it was wood, and it uses vast amounts of air, which it would draw in through the drafting doors and windows and keep the houses well ventilated. But when they went to bed, they quite often slept with the entire family in one bed or possibly two. There was a lot of overcrowding, completely different way of living these days than to these days. Well, we've become used to creature comforts.
You've dashed my appeal to Lewes Town Council. I was going to say, in the energy crisis, why don't we actually go back to having 65 pubs, and then we wouldn't have to worry about cold houses. We could all go to the pub each night. Well, Harvey's wouldn't be very happy with that, I imagine.
Well, Harvey's now. I'm not going to say it's got competition, but it's we've got two complementary breweries now.
So I understand,
yeah, Abyss and Beak, both doing extremely well, both with interesting products. We've got Longman out of Wilmington, Longman Brewery out there.
Yes.
And I particularly like their Cheeky Blonde. It's very nice. I'll give that one a plug any day of the week.
What about the one in Firle?
Right, I haven't tried them yet.
I mean, the only reason really that I know that it's in Firle is that from time to time, I looking at program ideas as I go down, I have my little fix of Firle, and if I can, I go and see the Mad Vicar. Because he's good value for money, is Peter. But when you wander through, you come across all the things that you'd forgotten are there, like the blacksmiths and the cricket club and the rest of it. Nobody ever forgets the pub, of course.
No, the Ram.
The Ram.
Excellent pub.
Yeah. But I did come across the brewery, and actually it looked like a very, very well-run brewery. I'm not familiar. I'm not a very big drinker anymore. It's having around the world. It takes your taste away from English bitter, and when you come back, because you couldn't get anything like anything equivalent at all, you got used to drinking lager, and then to break the habit is very difficult. So I'm not a beer expert, which leaves me high and dry in Lewes, because you all are. But I had no idea whether that's a good beer or a bad beer, but you don't know.
No, I've got to say, Pearl Brewery, you're on the list to be tried out.
Absolutely. There we go.
I'm sure it won't be a flop.
It looks like a very well-run little brewery. I must confess. I was quite impressed. But, I am impressed with, you walk past Harvey's, and it's all very neat and clean. And, there is nothing sort of industrial about it at all. I think it's terrific.
It's a fabulous brewery. I really like Harvey's because it is a traditional gravity brewery there. Only the water was pumped to the top, and the hops and the wheat and everything taken up to the top, and then everything is run by gravity and nature.
Yes, I mean it is. It's an astounding organisation. The other thing is actually, very modestly, I have written a book for mostly for universities. It's simply called Business Journalism, and it's mostly for the American market, although it is sold here. And I occasionally get sort of £24.50 per quarter as my share of the royalties. But I use Harvey's in it as an example of a unique marketing technique where they get so involved with the community is they don't actually advertise, but everybody is advertising for them. You cannot say anything about Harvey's that is negative in this town at all. Otherwise, you're swamped with people like you who come and pummel me around the ears.
Absolutely, and it's quite fascinating. I used to have an office in North Court that backed onto Harvey's. And old Mr. Jenner, what a lovely gentleman he was. so approachable, and I would quite often have an opportunity of a weekend. He had his allotment there. He actually had an allotment, and I could talk to him and how things were going, how was the new extension going, this, that, and the other. And he was like, "Oh, come on, boy, I'll show you around." And I had a whole number of private tours with him. Absolutely beautiful, just listening to what he had to say. And he was so significant in the success of Harvey's. And it's lovely because they're one of we look upon them as a big brewery, but they're not. They're a small brewery. And thank goodness they are, because it's kept the big breweries away from trying to buy them out.
Absolutely.
And when the campaign for Real Ale started mentioning Harvey's, I'll never forget some people banging on the office door one evening. And they'd driven down from Essex, and they were looking for a Harvey's pub. And I said, "Well, lovely." I said, "Park your car up here, up by the brewery." I said, "Take a little walk down to the doorstep, the pub down there. You've just driven past it." Harvey's has a unique following because it has such a beautiful product, a traditional product. And they've done so much for the community here in Lewis. They really have. They are just so much part of the community.
Can I? Well, I will reveal now a little secret. One of our co-hosts is a lady out of New York called Melissa Conti, and Melissa has been with Mirador from. Well, we worked together at Reuters, and we worked on a small scale TV and radio together for well over 20 years, I would think. And she came over it was in the end of November, beginning of December last year with her son. And Miles Jenner was very gracious, and he actually showed them around with a personal tour. And her son, Connor, who is about 21, 22, went back clutching the recipe for Harvey's Bitter. And has been busy making it in the kitchen in their flat in New York.
Wow.
So that she can bring a bottle of it back here and get Miles Jenner to taste it and say, "How did you do?"
Wow.
And the only thing is that so far he's had 3 explosions. But there we are. There is a little micro brewery in New York trying hard to replicate Harvey's. So that's our little secret let out now. Okay, Mick. Now, whenever I have guests, one as interesting as you and as knowledgeable as you, and we've had, I mean, the time has gone nowhere. It's 10:52 now. We've still got half an hour left, but I like to think that you can actually talk about what you want to on this program. So the next 10 minutes or so is yours. What do you want to talk about?
To be honest, I find the best thing around Lewis is actually doing the listening.
Well, you're certainly good at that because you reflect all sorts of things.
Yeah, I do a hell of a lot of listening, and I've been able over the recent years to meet a wider range of people than I ever met when I was plumbing and building. Last week, I sat down and had dinner, and on one side of me was a gentleman, 93 years old, from one of the oldest families in Ringmer. And he was quite astounded because he mentioned his grandfather's shop, and I said, yeah, remember that. It was there in 1955 when I first visited Ringmer. And I find listening now is one of my greatest pleasures, because there are so many lovely people out there in this town with their lovely experiences, their anecdotes, and their wisdom. And it's just a joy to be able to sit and hear other people's experiences.
Well, now, I mean, you run the Facebook pages. I think you've got about 4 on the go, have you not?
Yeah, principally they're Lewis Past and Lewis Present. I contribute to others, but we also have another one, which is quite nice, sitting there in the background. It's called Lewis Employment Opportunities. And the idea there was to put in one place where it's easily found all local employment vacancies, whether they be waged, part-time, voluntary, or whatever. And that's going on quite well. We've got a lot of local employers now are placing their vacancies there. Individuals are using it, looking for cleaners, carers, all sorts of things. On that one, I'd love it to be a little bit more proactive, but at the moment it is a repository where all the vacancies I'm aware of and the ones that are posted are to be found.
Yeah.
And I hope that it is helping people to find work and people to find team members to join their teams.
Well, if we can be of help in that, we'd be delighted to be so. I'm a great believer. I mean, I've set up more training groups for Reuters, for BBC, even ITV in Northern Ireland, and I'm a great believer in training, and it saddens me that in times of economic stress, the first thing to be cut out of a budget is the training budget. But do you know, in the times that I've been involved with local television and so on, is I have had at least 3, possibly 4 ladies come out of Lewis who, in my view, with a bit more training, could have hit national levels. The first one was Lalada Daniels, who is very heavily involved in social work here. Number 2 was Rosie. The name will come back to me in a moment. She left to have twins. and lastly, up until last year, we had Annie Verrill, who a very talented young lady and a great pianist and so on. And she took to it like duck to water. Now, I'm not in a position to give them in-depth training and so on. They would have to go on. But there is no appetite amongst the big boys to take a look. They've got their own bloody systems, which is a closed shop, and it's absolutely shameful, because a town like this and the sort of thing that you're trying to do should be able to benefit from the national scene, and anybody with talent be given an opportunity. Full stop.
Absolutely. One of the things I would like to see is more people taking a risk on youngsters that show initiative.
Absolutely.
The thing that used to get me, I actually did an apprenticeship. I was very lucky. I went into the aircraft industry, did a full apprenticeship. But it's jobs, you've got to be qualified, experienced. How the hell do you become experienced if you can't get a start in the first place? And every so often we're getting posts coming up from parents and kids who clearly have got some enthusiasm and they're looking for work experiences. It may well be that they're tried out on some form of work, it doesn't suit them. But we need to look at the youngsters and give them a better opportunity to come along and shine.
Yeah.
Because most of them are full of common sense and are willing. And not every one of them has got a whack and great academic roll of qualifications behind them.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because there is something in Brighton, I think it's called V8 College or something, but basically it is non-academic and it's a private one. But they approached us and said, would we take a couple of people 1 day a week who are interested in media? So we had 2 young men, both 17, well, the one's just turned 18 now. One came in on a Monday and the other came in on a Wednesday. The Monday chap isn't coming in anymore. It wasn't for him. He realised that, as indeed a lot of people do, it all seems glamorous media, and it's not. It's bloody hard work. But the second one has taken to it like duck to water, and in fact he helps co-present our Wednesday programme, and he's full of vim and vigour, and he will do very well. And I'm glad that we were able to do that with that. But in some ways, we're so small that we can't go looking for it.
Yeah.
These people found us, thank God, and we were able to help.
When I had the plumbing company here in Lewis, we did an awful lot of work experience. Even though young girls come down. But I assume really that what he was at school, they think, I want to be a plumber, thinking they're going to get out of doing work experience because nobody would take them on. But you give them a go. But one young lad, Roy, I'm sure Roy will not mind me using his name. He came down, and two things were fairly obvious. Was one that he was a very talented artist, and two that he wasn't very talented in building work. But anyway, we took Roy on after he left school, but building was definitely not his talent. It wasn't for him, but art was. He is now one of the best known and successful tattoo artists in the area. And he's been tattooing now, must be what we're talking about, blimey, 30 years or more. It was a pleasure to know him then.
Yeah.
And we still remain in touch today.
Isn't it nice?
Yeah.
Isn't it nice
Yeah.
when things turn out that way? That you helped somebody along. Yeah.
He found out that building was not for him, but his art has carried him forward and given him a good lifestyle. But yes, we need to encourage the youngsters. Give them a start, give them a try, encourage them along. If they're willing to get up in the morning, be reliable, and turn up for 5 days a week, you just crack the most important thing.
Show your magazine.
Right.
Hold it up to the camera. You can't. They can see you. You're all right. Because I'm just going to play another little a jubilee thing. Just the first 10 years of Her Majesty's reign. Yeah, sure.
How many sponsors around the town?
Yeah.
But without them, we'd be able to get it off the ground.
Yeah, I'll plug anybody you want. I mean, I have no worries about that.
So what we did, we went platinum, gold, and silver sponsors. 2004 platinum.
How do you remember those?
Oh, Steve. Only too well. Bottles of Albion Ale at home.
Right, there we are. Now, Mick, you are grateful to some of the business people in this town for helping with the magazine. So here you are, unashamed plugs.
I would like to say that in this magazine, in this souvenir program, we do have a number of adverts, and these all reflect the many sponsors around us who have been very generous in coming forward to support the event on the Saturday. They've been very, very generous to us, and without their help, we wouldn't have got it off the ground, really. So when you do see this, or you see any of the adverts in the town, remember those people are all helping you and the community, and we thank them all.
Absolutely. No, it's important that that you actually support those people who support the activities in the town, because there are enough of us who will complain bitterly that Christmas doesn't ever seem like Christmas anymore because these traders aren't supporting it and so on and so forth. Well, there are particular problems with that. Yep. But there is support, some of it hidden, some of it well advertised, as indeed in this magazine. So do, if you see an ad, do remember that it's done for the good of the town. I mean, I say that this television station is more for PR, really. We don't put bums in seats where people don't watch us in that way. What they do is they tap in and out. So do support any local trader who supports the sort of initiative that the Jubilee is. I mean, I'm actually to be quite honest with you, Mick, the only thing that I would say is you haven't made enough song and dance about the Jubilee activities. I mean, I actually, some good friends of mine who have lived in Lewis for yonks, well, I mean, longer than I have, not as long as you. But I said to them, because I now live on my own, I've lost my wife, is what are you doing on the Jubilee days? And they looked at me and said, "Oh, what are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, we've got 2 days holiday." And I said, I was going to invite myself around. So they looked a bit amazed, but they said, yes, come around for a drink. But perhaps we're not that aware yet that there's going to be whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, there has to be a balance. And the first thing is, if you start promoting it 4 months ago, people will be sick and tired of hearing it by now. So really, it's the last week. A week ago, I started putting it on the social media. All my colleagues that are involved in it, we're out there and talking to people. We want you, the public, to know it's on. We don't want to bore you to tears with it. We're all incredibly excited. We hope that enthusiasm and excitement that we're carrying will rub off, and you will come and join us and really enjoy this community event, because it is a community event. The fact that the organising is being done by the town's 7 bonfire societies, it's not a bonfire event, it's a community event, and we're very, very lucky that within the town's 7 bonfire societies we have a vast amount of skills that can be brought into play, and better than that, we have a load of contacts that also can be brought into play. So it is a huge community event. We hope that the community will support it. It's certainly going to be fun, and we can't be doing better for the music, because we've got some of the best well-known groups and brass bands in the area coming down to us on the Saturday. And I'm sure we're in competition with quite a very interesting music event in Stanmer Park, which has some incredibly good names there, possibly more to the liking of younger people. But unlike Stanmer Park, we're free. Free entry.
Right.
You're all welcome in the door.
Now, where and when are the fireworks taking place? Because we're famous for our fireworks, and you're Mr. Fireworks as well as me, Mr. Lewis.
Fireworks, absolutely. Lewis is famous for its fireworks. 10 o'clock at night, and come down to Malling and enjoy viewing them with us. If you're anywhere else in the town, you'll go and see them. The actual location they're being fired from is private. It's not open to the public, probably safety reasons and everything else. But you will enjoy it from Malling, and you will enjoy it from the Wallens. You'll enjoy it wherever it is. But come down to Malling. Put it in the diary now. Saturday evening, Malling Recreation Ground.
There you go. That's the place to be. That's on the Saturday night.
On the Saturday night.
Right. Now, Thursday,
train of beacons. The first one's going to be lit at Windsor. They're going to be lit all across the county. Your best place to view them will be from the racecourse or Lamport Bottom. And that will get you to see everything that you need to see and more. I'm hoping there'll be a few surprises, because I'm not aware of everything that's going on in this particular matter. One particular company has been selling a very nice, not very expensive beacon unit for you to put your own beacon up.
Oh, I love that idea.
So
who's selling that?
Well, this was a company called Bulldog. They're very well known for their propane gas burners and equipment, and they've been selling a lovely little 2-piece unit that you stick a gas bottle on. Not very environmentally friendly, okay, fossil fuel, but what the hell. But they've been coming up with this lovely little beacon system that people can buy, groups can buy, scouts can buy, whoever, anybody wants, private organisational group who wants to get together and have their beacon and have a little barbecue at home, they can, and take part, because this is all about Britain taking part, and the beacons, by the way, are being lit at from quarter to 10, whatever the local time is, around the Commonwealth.
Yes, right. So it's a global.
It's a global thing. Yeah. So I put a link on Lewis Present to the Queen's Jubilee beacon page, but unlike previous beacons, originally they were there as to signal alarm and to send it along literally from Cornwall to London double quick to know that the French or an invasion was a possibility. This is all about celebratory, and the traditional chain of beacons will all be lit, but anyone can have their own. That's the point. If you want to have a beacon in your back garden, you do so.
Is Firle Beacon going to be lit?
Pretty certain, yes.
Right.
Pretty certain there is one at Firle.
Now, the other question is, if I climb one of Mad Jack Fuller's follies, will I be able to see all the beacons?
Oh dear. I'm still convinced the best place to see them is from Lamport Bottom. I've been up there. Obviously, it's the Lewis Borough bonfire site, so I'm well aware of the spectacular view that we get from up there on bonfire night when we can see fireworks from Furrowfield, Heathfield, Hailsham, and everywhere. I believe honestly that is the place where you're going to see Sussex come alight. I really do. And
I think it's very exciting. I really do.
I'm so looking forward to this.
Yeah.
My biggest worry is that we've got just 2 weeks and it's going to be over. And it was a very slow build-up. We had all the meetings and everything else and all going on, but now everything it's running. We're no longer in the marathon. We're in the 100-yard dash because we're dashing down now towards getting stuff set up. In fact, the pair's moving off the wreck today. They'll be gone, and then the next major thing down there will be the Queen's Jubilee.
Well, now tell me this: how do we keep the thing running for the rest of the Jubilee year? Are the bonfire societies, for instance, thinking of making a theme for this year's November the 5th?
Haven't got a clue. One of the great things about bonfire is that the tab team is elected at the AGM, which is April, March, February in our case, and their task is to deliver a tab on the 5th, and off they go, and in the greatest of secrecy they will not only deliver a tab, but they come up with the theme, absolutely everything.
Right. Now you call it a tab or a tag?
Tableau.
Oh, a tableau. Right.
Tableau.
I'm not in with this sort of talk.
So whatever each society is going to do, and I'd be very surprised if there isn't somewhere along the line references to Her Majesty. Very, very surprised indeed. It will be the great secret that will be unveiled on the 5th of November.
Right. Okay. Well, I hope that at least one tab group keep the theme. It doesn't have to be the main theme, but keep the theme of Jubilee, because you made the very astute comment a couple of hours ago when we started this program that this is unique. This is the last one that we will see, and therefore it is sort of more or less an event more than just a commemoration. And it would be great if, in fact, the whole year of 2022 is celebrated. I mean, one thing that I haven't, I've not done much investigation into this at all, because getting out of this chair is a difficulty. I'm more or less the only one that can be here 100% of the time. But I would hope perhaps that the Bluebell Railway would do something, because one of the things about the 1952 is we had wonderful steam trains.
Yes.
Within a decade, they'd almost disappeared. A sad loss to our society, even if they were grimy and smoky and miserable. And the steam train, to me, is iconic for that decade when I was a boy.
Well, one of the things we may have, and I have to, I expressly urge caution. There is a great possibility that 1 or 2 traction engines will be in steam at our event.
Aha.
We can't guarantee it because all these things are temperamental, and they may not want to fire up and run properly or something, or burst a gasket or whatever.
But they're scheduled. They're scheduled if in fact they work.
If they fire up in the morning and everything's okay and they're safe to roll, they will be rolling in. So we're really crossing our fingers that one of the great things that you will see on that Saturday is a pair of traction engines that were recently seen as part of the convoy towing a huge transformer through Brighton.
Wonderful.
Yeah, if they can get them to us, they are coming.
Right.
So that's fine, and I'm sure that every grandfather would want to take his grandchildren to see that one.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean, there are some. When you actually look back, I mean, just even the little thing that we've done with a few shots here and there were some wonderful things that came out of that decade. We were a war-weary nation. We showed there, the Anderson shelters, the bombed-out buildings, boys playing conkers.
Yep.
But also the steam trains. And I mean, Billy Wright leading out the England side at Wembley, playing against Scotland. I mean, that got lost for a long time, didn't it? England-Scotland, but that's back again on the schedule.
Malling Wreck is of course a tribute to the railway that did run across it.
Indeed.
People, the older people here in Lewes will remember well the embankment that run through there. The younger people will not be aware that there was a huge chalk embankment with a double track on it that had to be cleared away and created that space there.
Yeah. I mean, actually, one of the nice things about I don't do it very often because I don't have animals, but going down onto the wetlands just by the station there, is you can still come across signs of the old track that veered off to Uckfield, I assume. Wonderful things, wonderful memories in Lewes. And Mick, I'm eternally grateful to you for spending the time with me this morning because we've kicked off this week, which is leading up to it's the last full week before we get into June and the proper celebrations and to relive some of the things that we did while still keeping an eye on the contemporary problems that we've got, such as energy, such as the war, such as Brexit, the things that are hammering home to us, which it's a pity that it's coming this year, but there it is. We can't be masters of our destiny in that sense. But also looking at the history of Lewes and some of the things that, wonderful things about this. I said to somebody last week on this program, can't remember who I talked to. Oh, I know. It was. I think it's the Lewes Folk Festival chap who with the sevens and that sort of thing. It's a very good initiative, that I think. But you can't move in Lewes without tripping over history.
No, absolutely not.
It's at every turn. At every turn. And if there's any society, I mean a community, good at preserving it and making sure that you're aware of it, it's this one. And he's right in the centre of it.
But if I may, Keith, I'll come back in the near future, possibly Monday. There is some special Souvenir Jubilee merchandising has been arranged.
Right.
And we're hoping to take delivery of it this week.
Right.
And I'd love to come along and introduce some of the little bits and pieces that will be uniquely available.
You choose your day, and you're very welcome, and you can push anything that you want. Quite happy with that, and we'd be very happy to have you. Yeah.
Right now, I'm just happy to push having fun.
Well, that's the main thing, isn't it?
And that's what we want. We want to have fun. You don't have to be a monarchist. You don't have to be a royalist to have fun. You can be the worst Republican in blooming Lewes, but you're welcome to come down and have a beer with me, my colleagues, and the rest of the community.
Indeed, and it's always one of the things that I thump is never mind whether you are a royalist or not. A constitutional monarchy is the safest form of government that you can have anywhere in the world. There are only a handful of countries that have it. We're one of them. And a constitutional monarchy, and particularly the way that ours is based on an unwritten constitution, means it's almost impossible for us to be overthrown. So what is it Elgar said? All men shall be free, ride to liberty with me. Well, it may have been jingoistic, but by golly, in this day and age, when we've got Russia pouring over the borders into Ukraine, isn't it a timely reminder that those sort of empirical ambitions have not disappeared from some dictators in the world? And it can't happen here. It cannot happen here because of our constitutional monarchy. Doesn't matter whether you approve of royalty or not. That's beside the point. It's the system that counts. The system that counts, and that's what we're celebrating in part.
We are indeed.
Yeah. Okay, it's 11:20. We've got 10 minutes left. I would like to perhaps, well, let me just see whether we've got something that we can also show you. Oh, I love this one. And again, it's one of my little commentaries. When I was working in the Balkans, we used to come across the jobsworths from the EU and from the UN, and they were jobsworths. There's nothing to do with skill in getting their jobs. It's that they knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, and so we used to sing this to them. And I take a deal of pride that I was a real rebel and a real nonsensical one in those days. And here it is.
We're busy doing nothing, working the whole day through, trying to find lots of things not to do. We're busy going nowhere, isn't it just a crime? We'd like to be unhappy, but we never do have the time.
Well, there we are. It's 11:21. Mick has just taken an urgent call. Beep, 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 it went. So he's tucking off into the corner there. But we still have 6 minutes to go, so he'll have time to come back, I'm sure. And let's see if there's something else that we can find to play us out this morning. Let's do. Mick has got me into the mood where I'm showing some of my own biases. Let's do this little comment on war.
And it's 20th of July.
How many roads must a man walk down before you call him a man? How many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many years must a mountain exist before it is washed to the seas? And how many years can some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head and pretend that he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Yes, and how many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? And how many ears must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind.
And yeah,
So there we are, and Mick is back from the corner there taking his call. It is 11:24. We have 6 minutes left before we disappear for this Monday morning, and what an enjoyable Monday morning it has been for me. We have wandered over a wide range of topics. Some will be of interest to those who are international. Some will be interesting to those who are very, very local. Let me say now that nothing that we have discussed has been parochial. It has all been pertinent to our way of life, what we hold dear, the values, not only for Lewis, but for the rest of the UK. And when you get that experience, believe me, you feel good. I wish I could take the rest of the day off. I can't. He can't either. He's got to rush away to do 1,000 things ready for the beacons that will be lit here in Lewis. Right, Mick, you've got 2 minutes to remind us of everything that's happening.
right. The main thing is we're now on the final countdown to the Queen's Silver Jubilee, Platinum Jubilee. 4 days of bank holiday, 4 days of great celebration of a wonderful monarchy over the last 7 decades. And we will be having the highlight of it all on the Saturday, which is the massive event at Malden Recreation Ground. Midday it opens, 11 o'clock at night it closes, and in between 11 hours of great fun and enjoyment for all the family.
Okay, and a blaze of light across the country, and as met much in Lewis on the Thursday the 2nd.
Thursday the 2nd of June is the train of beacons from 9:45 at night. Yes, there will be a beacon or beacons in Lewis and all the surrounding countryside. It's going to be a light with flame.
And who's flogging the mini beacon?
The mini beacons now, if your order isn't in, you probably won't get them. But mini beacons were on sale through Bullfinch, the propane gas suppliers. All the details of their beacons were on the Queen's Jubilee official site.
There you are. You can check it out. You could have your own beacon if you wanted. I wish I'd known about it earlier. But then I get so stuck here looking after the shop, I don't get my nose out half enough. But thank God I was putting my nose out into the precinct on Saturday morning, because who was there? Flogging. Where is it? Flogging.
Yes.
Yeah. There you go. £3 a shot, and it's worth every penny of it, and it all goes to charity anyway. So there was Mick with his trusty aides, making sure that as many were sold on Saturday morning. But how many do you have printed?
We've had 3,000 printed. Obviously, there's complimentaries have to go out to that, which is probably about 50. Where you see these around the town at the various shops and outlets and pubs, please buy one. It is unique. They're only available for this specific event. They are full of interesting information, and of course, they reflect on our sponsors as well, who we're very grateful that have enabled us to actually get this whole project underway.
Right, there you are. That's it in a nutshell. And if you only just tuned in, that is the nutshell, because we're about to leave you. But we've been here since 8:30 this morning. In fact, with Rouser Radio since 7:30 this morning. I'm getting very baggy-eyed. I can't wait for my glass of wine at lunchtime to try and perk me up. But we are here every morning from 8:30 until 11:30 at the White Hart Hotel in Lewis, a hotel of great significance when it comes to history, because it's where Tom Paine developed his theories about the rights of man, which he eventually took to the United States, and he triggered the American War of Independence. And so it all happened here. Look at the rafters. That's where it happened. And as for Lewis, well, he didn't actually leave a legacy here. But do you know what Tom Paine left a legacy of somewhere near Sunderland?
A bridge.
Single span bridge. You're quite right. He invented the single span bridge. So he wasn't just a soldier. He wasn't just a militant. He just wasn't just a loudmouth. He was a man of genius. It's 11:29. We've got to go. Say goodbye, Mick.
Bye, everyone. Catch you again soon.
Till tomorrow morning. Toodle pip.